Picture this. It's 48 BC. A teenage girl is rolled up inside a carpet, smuggled past armed guards into the private chambers of the most powerful man on earth. When the carpet unrolls, she emerges not as a concubine, but as a queen who's about to change the course of history forever. Everyone knows Cleopatra as the beautiful seductress who charmed Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But what if I told you that her legendary beauty was just a smokescreen? What if the real Cleopatra was something far more dangerous? A strategic mastermind who nearly brought the Roman Empire to its knees using nothing but her intellect. Today, we're uncovering the true story of how an 18-year-old girl outsmarted Rome's greatest generals and turned Egypt from a crumbling kingdom into the Mediterranean's most feared power. Let's set the stage. It's 51 BC, and Egypt is in crisis. The kingdom that once built the pyramids is now a shadow of its former glory broke, politically fractured, and surrounded by enemies. When Ptolemy XII dies, the throne passes to his two eldest children, 18-year-old Cleopatra VII and her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy XIII. According to Egyptian tradition, they're supposed to rule together as co-monarchs and marry each other. Yes, you heard that right. The Ptolemies had been keeping it in the family for 300 years. But here's the problem. Cleopatra has zero intention of sharing power with a child, especially one controlled by ambitious advisors. She's been groomed for this moment her entire life. While other princesses learned to look pretty, Cleopatra mastered mathematics, philosophy, economics, and military strategy. She speaks 9 languages fluently, including Egyptian, which her Greek ancestors never bothered to learn. But her advisors see her as a threat. A woman who thinks for herself? Unacceptable. So they make their move. In 48 BC, just 3 years into their joint rule, Cleopatra's own advisors engineered a coup. They convince young Ptolemy XIII to exile his sister and claim the throne for himself. Imagine that the teenage queen, who speaks 9 languages, commands the loyalty of Egypt's people, and understands economics better than Rome's senators, gets kicked out by her own government. Most rulers would flee to a neighboring kingdom and beg for asylum. But Cleopatra? She starts raising an army. While she's gathering forces in Syria, something extraordinary happens in Rome. Julius Caesar, the man who conquered Gaul and crossed the Rubicon, is locked in a civil war with Pompey the Great. And guess where Pompey flees when he starts losing? Egypt. Here's where it gets interesting. Young Ptolemy XIII's advisors think they're being clever. They murder Pompey the moment he sets foot on Egyptian soil, then present his head to Caesar as a gift. They figure Caesar will be grateful for eliminating his enemy. They couldn't have been more wrong. When Caesar arrives in Alexandria and sees Pompey's severed head, he's not grateful. He's furious. Pompey was his rival, yes, but also a Roman citizen. This disrespect to Rome cannot stand. Suddenly, little Ptolemy XIII has made a very big enemy. Things are about to get crazy. Hit that subscribe button, because you won't believe what Cleopatra does next. This is where Cleopatra proves she's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. She knows Caesar is angry. She knows he's in Alexandria with his legions. And she knows that her brother's advisors have just made the stupidest political miscalculation in Egyptian history. So she hatches a plan that's so audacious, so perfectly calculated, it reads like a spy novel. Remember that carpet I mentioned? Here's what really happened. Cleopatra secretly returns to Alexandria, but she can't just walk into the palace. Her brother's guards will arrest her on sight. So she has her loyal servant Apollodorus wrap her in a carpet and carry her into Caesar's private quarters as a gift. But here's the key detail everyone misses. This wasn't a desperate gambit. This was a precisely calculated first impression. When that carpet unrolls and Cleopatra emerges, she's not some helpless exile begging for protection. She's a queen making an entrance. And the first words out of her mouth aren't pleas or flattery. They're a business proposition that will change the Roman Empire forever. Here's what Cleopatra offers Caesar and why it's pure genius. First, Egypt's grain supply. Rome imports 1/3 of its food from Egypt. Without Egyptian wheat, Rome's million citizens starve, and Caesar's political career dies with them. But Cleopatra doesn't just offer grain. She offers to triple production using irrigation techniques her engineers have perfected. Second, Egypt's navy. Caesar's locked in civil war, and naval power controls the Mediterranean. Cleopatra commands 400 warships and the most experienced sailors in the ancient world. Third, and this is the masterstroke, she offers Caesar something no Roman politician has: legitimacy in the East. Egypt is still seen as a divine kingdom by millions of people from Libya to Palestine. An alliance with Cleopatra makes Caesar not just a conqueror, but a legitimate ruler. Caesar realizes immediately what he's dealing with. This isn't some love-struck teenager. This is a strategic mind that understands power better than most Roman senators. Within days, Caesar's forces crush Ptolemy XIII's army. The boy king drowns in the Nile, and Cleopatra is restored to the throne. But now she's not just Queen of Egypt. She's Caesar's most valuable ally. But wait until you hear how she plays the same game with Mark Antony. Double tap if you're loving this story. When Caesar is assassinated in 44 BC, most of his allies panic. Political alliances die with their patrons, right? Wrong. Cleopatra has been paying attention to Roman politics, and she knows exactly who's going to win the power struggle: Mark Antony. She pulls the exact same move, but even more dramatically. Instead of a carpet, she arrives in a golden barge dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. Instead of grain, she offers Antony the wealth of Egypt and the loyalty of the Eastern Mediterranean. And it works. Again, by 34 BC, Cleopatra and Antony control everything east of Italy. Rome is genuinely terrified that this Egyptian queen might actually defeat them. Here's the tragedy: Cleopatra almost won. Suppose Octavian hadn't been such a brilliant propagandist. If the Battle of Actium had gone differently, we might be speaking Greek today instead of calling Latin a dead language. But even in defeat, Cleopatra changed history forever. She proved that intelligence could challenge raw military power. She showed that a woman could outmaneuver Rome's greatest generals. And she demonstrated that Egypt, even a weakened Egypt, could still shake the foundations of empire. The Romans were so threatened by her legacy that they spent centuries rewriting her story, turning the brilliant strategist into a beautiful seductress. They couldn't admit that an 18-year-old girl had nearly outsmarted their entire civilization. So the next time someone mentions Cleopatra's beauty, remind them of a real weapon, a mind sharp enough to turn Rome's own strengths against them. She wasn't just the last pharaoh of Egypt. She was the first queen to prove that brains could triumph over brute force. What other myths from history do you want me to debunk? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories they definitely didn't teach you in school.